Hello, Poetry Peeps. What a morning. The weather, for I don't think I've given you a weather report for a while, is very bright and extremely hot. Just the weather for transplanting my cacti, which I have to do this afternoon. Today, I have a visitor who's come to read to you, and me, Julie Bloss Kelsey. She's here to read from her book, Grasping the Fading Light, A Journey Through PTSD. It was published a few years back, and it's taken us quite a while to get together and organise a reading. But as you'll hear, that's probably not a bad thing. It was a moving and fascinating chat. I had a layman's idea of PTSD, but after today, I probably have a better appreciation of it. Julie has widened my knowledge in what is at times a difficult conversation on both sides. I hope I do it justice, but that's for you to decide. You might think a book, a chat about PTSD is a miserable topic. But actually, I think what shines through is hope, healing, and great humanity. I know you might think this is not for you, and you might be right. But Julie is a fantastic poet, and she's taken the chance and offered us her vulnerability with this book. She has courage, and it shows through. Enough from me. Let's go and meet Julie again, because it's not the first time she's read to us. And I'll put a link in the show notes to her other reading. Julie, hello and welcome back to the podcast.
Hi, Patricia. I'm happy to be here. I'm nervous, but I'm happy.
You'll be fine. You always say that, and you always, what do they say in America? Knock it out of the park when I sort of understand that. Anyway, Julie, we're here to talk about Grasping the Fading Light, A Journey Through PTSD. It tells a story, at least to me, in the form of one-line and three-line haiku and senryū, and of course, tanka. And you're going to read to us, and we'll go a little bit deeper into that story as we go along. Before we continue with the reading, do you think you can give us a bit of a clue about PTSD? What is it?
Okay, PTSD stands for post-traumatic stress disorder, and it is commonly associated with war veterans, someone who went through a horrific experience and kind of can't get past it, relives it. You have nightmares and you have sometimes memories that are intrusive. But it can also happen in children, and that's what happened in my case. I went through something traumatic when I was very small, and I blocked it out completely. But I still had symptoms of PTSD through my childhood. And when I got older, in my 20s, and realized something had happened to me, I started on this long journey of therapy, and that helped me kind of process through. And then I happened to remember something really traumatic when I was in my 50s, and I had been writing haiku at that point, and I just got incorporated into what I was working on.
What were the symptoms? When you were in your 20s, what are you thinking? Oh, there's something not quite right. What were the symptoms that you were experiencing?
I had a lot of difficulty being in touch with my body.
Hmm.
I spend a lot of time kind of living in my head and not
Hmm.
really being in touch with my therapists have always worked with me on grounding, try to feel the roots beneath your feet and try to
Hmm.
feel each joint in your body, or
Hmm.
relaxation exercises that are
Um,
somatic. That's one thing. Um, Nightmares. I have nightmares about things, or I'm easily startled.
mhm.
But in my 20s, mostly what I realized is I felt a lot like I was inside out, and I don't know how to explain that much better, except that I was always looking out to other people to validate my experiences. I didn't have a real confidence about what I was experiencing,
Mhm.
and I didn't feel very I think I always felt a certain amount of anxiety. And I was traveling for work when I was in my 20s. And I remember going into a hotel room and locking the door and laying on the bed and thinking, I feel really calm here. And I thought, oh, I could have this in other places if I knew how to do it. And it was really eye-opening for me that I had allowed my life experiences to leave me in an uncomfortable place. Like I needed to learn to build a safe place for myself at home, and I didn't know how to do that.
Okay.
And that's a lot of what my journey has been about because I didn't know how to live in my own skin, I guess is the best way to put it.
Mhm. But you had no problem communicating, interacting with other people. It was a sort of internal thing.
I did have trouble in relationships.
Okay.
I especially if they came anywhere close to sex.
Hmm.
My first boyfriend, serious boyfriend, anytime we would even get remotely intimate, the next day I would break up with him. And I didn't see a pattern in it at all. And he was the one who had pointed out there's a pattern here. And I went, oh, oh, I guess I should figure that out. One time we had a fight and I went and sat in his closet, which I think is that was me kind of reliving trauma from my
Hmm.
childhood. I wasn't in the healthiest place. Phil, if you're out there, I'm sorry. I was so difficult. Um, yeah, that was early in my life.
Oh, yes. And I guess before you realized that you had this trauma in your
I didn't
past.
realize the extent of it. I didn't
Uh-huh.
realize how it was influencing my relationships. I didn't realize I wasn't focused on, I didn't have an internal sense of calm the way I do
Yeah.
now.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying I don't get nervous or anxious because
Yeah,
anybody
yeah.
who knows me knows I do, but I internally was very churned up all the time. And I didn't realize that that was kind of my norm.
Wow.
And then when I got older, I realized it. Like I said, starting with that one trip for work, and
Hmm.
then um, yeah, it's been a journey for sure. And you don't get over PTSD. I mean, I guess some people maybe would say they did. This will be with me my whole life.
Hmm.
Certainly, the impacts of it are much less now that I understand what happened to me. I don't know everything that happened, but I
Hmm.
know enough and I could move forward. And there's something very comforting about that, even if the picture I put together is not the prettiest.
Yeah, yeah. So did this inner turmoil, did that affect, obviously it affected your mental health, but did it affect your physical health as well?
Yes, I have migraines. I would have had them anyway. That's in my
Okay.
family.
Hmm.
But when I get migraines that just will not budge, they don't respond to medication. I'm usually like, yeah, I'm probably processing something new. Oh,
Yeah.
joy. Um, yeah, I convert. I was a somaticizer, I converted it all to
Mhm.
that. I have a hard time sometimes experiencing emotions, strong emotions. I do better now, but I used to just go straight into having a migraine because I just couldn't, my body didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, still working on that too.
Hey, but as you said, you'll be working on it for the rest of your life, but you have coping mechanisms, I guess, now, so
I
that's
do.
handy.
It's really that's one of the reasons I'm so happy that you're allowing me to talk about it, is that for people out there who are alone and experiencing symptoms of PTSD or really any sort of trauma, there's a lot of support out there. It's very hard to reach out to other
Hmm.
people, but it's very rewarding. It's incredibly rewarding to do that, to not feel alone in it and to have other people who speak your language and you don't have to explain yourself all the time. And people look at you kind of funny, like, well, what is that? And it's like they get it right away. And that's been really nice. I'm currently working with a trauma specific counselor,
Hmm.
and it's been really interesting, finding out other things about myself. She forces me to look at things I wouldn't normally look at. And
Hmm.
yeah, like I said, it's continued to be a journey. So I feel a little guilty in my title of my book that makes it sound like the journey is over because it certainly is not.
And I'm sure, come on to that. So, Julie, while you were talking, a couple of things popped into my head. The first one was, how did you know it was time to seek help? And the second one was, and I think you said it to me, whether it was now or off air, you said you have a support group. It's been great. How easy was it to reach out to a support group? Because I think it must take courage to do both.
Yeah, I first looked into therapy when I was in college,
Hmm.
and I went through a number of therapists actually before I found someone who worked with me on PTSD. I didn't originally realize that's what I was going to therapy for.
Hmm.
I just knew that I don't know, I felt like I needed help sorting things out. My relationships were very dramatic, as I
Hmm.
said,
Yeah.
and I was having trouble figuring out what it was I wanted to do with my life. And as time went on, I found therapists who could work with me on PTSD and eventually got diagnosed with that. But I didn't reach out to do specific trauma work. Gosh, I was actually in a trauma group. It was not that long ago.
Okay.
And that had to do with I'm trying to remember what really motivated me. I felt like I needed something more. The therapist I had at the time was not a trauma therapist. She was nice,
Hmm.
but I felt like I wasn't. Sometimes I feel like therapists, they want to work from your current situation in, and I really needed someone who could work from little kid up.
Okay.
And I had tried a therapist here. I had a therapist I really liked when I was in grad school. And then when I moved up here, I couldn't find someone who did the same type of work. And I tried someone here who did that type of work, but it didn't work out. And when you have memories that you've lost, sometimes therapists try to put those stories together for you.
Oh.
And I've had that happen twice, and it is not right, but it does happen. And it was really, it adds to the trauma to have
Hmm.
someone take over your story because you're like trying to figure it out, and no one else can do it for you. You have to really work through it on your own. And
Hmm.
so after that, I was a little gun shy here.
Okay.
And then, but it was in the back of my mind. And so I wound up going to, I don't know, I found this person online and just
Hmm.
wound up going to a trauma group. Um, and we actually met online, which was interesting. But all these different women, it was a women's support group. They'd all
Hmm.
had trauma, but it was different things and different ages.
Oh.
And it was nice, to see other people and know that you weren't alone.
Hmm.
And then there's another group that I attend sometimes that is, it's actually specifically for Catholic people with PTSD. It's a really little group. And the guy who started it is just awesome.
Hmm.
And that was helpful too. Um, I went to one meeting there, and one time there was a war veteran there. And I had thought that I would find him scary because, I'm processing an inner child experience and he's processing an adult experience. And it wasn't. And I thought to myself, my God, PTSD is just different flavors of hell. And we've all been through something.
Oh, that's an interesting phrase. Different flavors of hell. I must write that down before I forget. Um, Julie, thank you for being so open and honest with us. We should probably slip back to the book. And I should tell people that this book, Grasping the Fading Light, was a winner of the 2021 International Women's Haiku Contest at Sable Books. And I believe Carla Ramesh, who was the final judge, said, the poems are strong and forceful, and at the same time gentle and honest, as we will hear. Quite agree with her. She's quite right. And the title, Grasping the Fading Light, A Journey Through PTSD. Well, we know about PTSD, or we have some inkling about PTSD now. But what about the first part of the title, Grasping the Fading Light? How did you come up with that? Where does that come from?
Grasping the Fading Light is one of the poems in the book, and I will read it for you.
Yes, please.
Grasping the fading light, bare talons of an old oak. Grasping the fading light, bare talons of an old oak. And I felt like it was really an apt description for what I was going through with PTSD. Not everyone who has PTSD has missing memories like I did,
Hmm.
But for me, my experience was that every time I would remember something new, it was awful. And I would have to reprocess all of it all over again and figure out,
Um,
sort it out in my history, figure out where to stick it. And
hmm
it was so overwhelming and so upsetting. And I was still trying to look for the good in the world, but it was really hard.
hmm
And that's what that reminds me of and why I included it. I felt like you're trying to hang on to the light, but it's really hard.
And it strikes me again that you're doing this. I mean, as you said, you're doing this sort of from your 20s onwards, but in more recent years, you've been doing this and bringing up kids as well. It must be really hard dealing with your inner child and bringing up
Yeah,
children as well.
I've tried to explain things. I have three children, and I've
Yeah.
tried to explain to them as much as they're willing and capable of hearing.
hmm
But I was terrified of hurting them with this.
Mm.
I would try to cry quietly or go out on a
Yeah.
ride with my husband and talk to him about it. I didn't want it to influence them, and my apologies, kids. I know it did. I never wanted to hurt them, but I
hmm
know it did.
Really?
And I also know there wasn't anything I could do about that, but it doesn't make it easier.
No, it does not make it easier. You're quite right. Julie, let's hear a selection of poems from the book.
Sliver of moon, still hanging on to my illusions. Sliver of moon, still hanging on to my illusions. First morning coffee, lies I tell myself. First morning coffee lies, I tell myself. Stripping away the patriarchy, naked Barbies. Stripping away the patriarchy, naked Barbies. Damned if I do, damned if I don't. Trauma therapy. Damned if I do, damned if I don't. Trauma therapy. Snow melt. Things I thought I'd left behind. Snow melt. Things I thought I'd left behind. The black mark on my permanent record. Molestation. The black mark on my permanent record. Molestation. Thermals rising all across the valley. Prayers for rain. Thermals rising all across the valley. Prayers for rain. Watching the geese fly in and out of formation. Evening sky. Watching the geese fly in and out of formation. Evening sky. Through wooden slats of a horse paddock. The child's eye. Through wooden slats of a horse paddock. The child's eye. Barrier Island. The bray of wild horses drifts on sea breeze. Barrier Island. The bray of wild horses drifts on sea breeze.
Julie, thank you very much for that reading. When I think of your subtitle, A Journey Through PTSD, I think it felt so appropriate to me because listening to you and having read the book, it feels like we've been on a journey, that you've been on a journey. You know it's PTSD. For me, not, I mean, I know very little about it until we sat and chatted, but to me, it feels like grief. And to show what I mean, to show everybody what I mean, perhaps we could look at a couple of the stages. The first one, denial. And I can see denial and a sort of resistance to what you're going through in the first couple of poems that you read to us. That the first one being sliver of moon, still hanging on to my illusions. The second being first morning coffee, lies I tell myself. But then you read it a slightly different way as well. How did you read it a second way?
First morning coffee, lies I tell myself. And then first morning coffee lies I tell myself. Because
Okay.
I feel like there's a whole echo of lying going on there.
It-
There's like first morning coffee, and I'm like, oh, that didn't happen. That's not true.
Mhm.
And then at the second read, it's like, oh, well, the coffee is also, I'm using that to pacify myself. And that's another lie. I'm just trying to bury it further.
Mm. So would you say that's denial, sort of resistance to moving on a little bit?
Yes. And,
Mm.
and I did intend it that way.
Oh. Hey, I'm reading it right. And then I felt a lot of anger in this one. Damned if I do, damned if I don't. Trauma therapy.
I don't think I realized how angry I was until I read those aloud. And
Hmm.
I sound really mad when I read them. And I'm like, oh, I guess I was angry.
Yeah, I mean, I felt it on the page, and when you read it as well, very much, I could feel that anger. Do you see any comparison between grief and the what you're going through with PTSD? I mean, maybe you're lucky and you've not had to go through the grieving process. I do hope that's the case, but
Yeah, no, I really do. And I did when I structured the poems, I wanted them to follow the stages of grief. So, and also the seasons. So we start out with denial is also in the fall. I go through anger in the winter.
hmm.
And then by the time I hit summer, I'm closer to acceptance. And so I sort of patterned them with both of those things in mind.
Ooh.
Um,
I think I should have picked that up, but I didn't pick that up quite so easily. I mean, so hung up on the idea of these sort of stages of grief, and how similar they seem to be to what you were going through at the time.
I
Um,
feel like I also was grieving for myself.
I
So
can
I
imagine.
was grieving some of the things I didn't get to experience as a child because I was spending a lot of energy blocking out certain
Hmm.
things, and that left me numb to a lot of experiences.
Yeah,
Um,
I can well imagine that. And I asked you to read the poems in the order, more or less in the order that they are in the book, because I think it also shows a process of healing. I know you said you're never going to be 100% healed, but I think you can see that you're coming from a very negative place at the beginning towards a much more positive place. Which, when I read Barrier Island, so Barrier Island, the bray of wild horses drifts on sea breeze. To me, just the idea of these wild horses and drifting on sea breeze is just a very positive, hopeful uh, expression, really. I mean, that's what came through for me when I read this poem. And although you read them out chronologically, I bet, and maybe I'm wrong, I bet they didn't arrive chronologically on the page initially.
yeah, I didn't set out to write a book about trauma.
Hmm.
I started writing haiku poetry after the birth of my daughter in 2009.
Hmm.
And it was just what I was writing at the time. And
Okay.
so I got to where I had about 10 years of poetry and I had quite a few poems published. And I'm like, I don't know how to organize this. And so I laid all the poems out and I'm like, okay, here's these really sweet poems that are about motherhood.
Hmm.
And those became my first book, The Call of Wildflowers.
Hmm.
And then the rest of them were a big chunk that I called the pensive collection because they all just sounded pensive to me. And I didn't really know what to do with them. And then I
Hmm.
had these really hardcore trauma poems, the damned if I do, damned if I don't type poems. And I'm like, I don't know what to do with those either. And it took me a while to figure out that I could interweave the pensive poems with the trauma poems. And then it was really a story of my journey. But I really just wrote them. I didn't write them in any specific order. It just happened to be how I remembered or experienced them at the time.
And as you said, you've placed them in seasons.
I
chronological
did.
seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to tell people who know me, this is a very condensed version. So while all these things are true, they did not happen this intensely or this quickly.
Hmm.
Because I worry the people who knew me will be like, oh my God, I didn't know. Because it sounds I mean, it was hard. I'm not gonna say it wasn't hard, but it
Hmm.
did occur over a long period of time.
Sure.
So the poems cover quite a few ages of me, but I didn't write them for any particular reason. You know, we have talked about After Curfew, which was
Hmm.
the book of
Yeah.
poems I wrote in one night,
Yeah.
mostly. This did not occur that way. This was pretty much my entire collection of work, and I just sort of picked and chose from what I had. But I did have quite a bit of trauma work, and I always am thankful to Rowan Beckett for that, for having the space in their journals for me to place some of that work because I don't know that I would have written it otherwise.
Hmm.
And it was a very healing thing for me, I think, to get it out here. It's made it really hard to promote a book like this.
Mm.
I don't think I really thought that part through when I was putting it together. I thought the hard part would be getting it published. I didn't think about having to talk about it, and that's been really hard for me. So even though the book came out in 2023,
Yeah.
I'm only able to start talking about it now.
Although we've been talking about doing this for some time. I mean, we've just had
That is
things,
true.
we've had things in our lives that have just stopped us doing it. But yeah, maybe that's why, because you weren't meant to talk to me until now. There is one of the poems that you've read to us, Julie, that I know you find really, really emotional. If it's okay, I'd love you to read it to us again and maybe tell us a bit about it, but I understand if it's just a bit too much.
Yeah, this poem is deceptively simple for other people. It's the hardest one for me out of the whole book, and it is watching the geese fly in and out of formation, evening sky. Watching the geese fly in and out of formation, evening sky. And for me, that is what it felt like to try to reorder my memories. So I remember the day I wrote it, I was sitting in a parking lot waiting for one of my kids. I would spend a lot of time waiting for my kids. And I was thinking, I don't know what's real. I don't know which of these memories is real. I don't know which is false. I don't know how to order this. I don't know how to live like this. And that's actually the hardest poem in the book. Even though other ones look like they should be much more painful to read, it's that one. Getting all choked up again here.
Oh, well, thank you very much for sharing it with us. Well, Julie, we've heard one-liners, we've heard three-liners, but I can't let you go without hearing a couple of the tanka you've written for the book. I've chosen a couple, and they're both from fairly early in the book, which I think still show you in the early stages of the process. Would you read them to us, please?
If I let go, the whole world will fall to pieces, shattered snow globe. If I let go, the whole world will fall to pieces, shattered snow globe. And the other was, in the waiting room, I searched for any sign of my recovery. Such bright stripes on this clownfish. In the waiting room, I searched for any sign of my recovery. Such bright stripes on this clownfish.
Thank you, Julie. Really powerful imagery in both of those poems. I think, if I'm honest with you, I think If I Let Go is my favorite in the whole book. But I'm interested to know, as someone who doesn't really write tanka that often myself, how did you go? How did these come to you? Did they come to you in separately in three and two lines, and you sort of blended them together and worked on them? Did they come fully formed and you thought they're naturally tanka? How did they come to you? Do you remember?
Well, I have to be honest here. I see myself as a haiku poet.
Hmm.
So if I write tanka, it usually is because I couldn't fit it into a haiku for some reason.
Yeah.
Um, so that's generally how that comes for me. The clownfish poem came as it is.
Okay.
That's how it came to me. Um, it didn't cause me grief. The Shattered Snow Globe was a really tough poem, and I spent a lot of time on that trying to sort out whether it was a haiku or really a senryū or whether it was a tanka, and I
Hmm.
just didn't know. And I kept trying different ways of lineating it, and it
Hmm.
took a really long time for it to become in this form here that
Well,
you see in the book.
what I should say to you, Julie, is obviously thank you very much for coming along, for talking to us about something that's very difficult to talk about, and actually it's quite hard in some ways to listen to as well when you think about. I mean, we haven't gone into depth about what happened to you, but you can imagine from some of the poetry you've read the sort of the sort of experience you might have had. But that aside, if people want to read more of this book, they're going to have to get hold of it. How do they go about it?
You can find it on Amazon.
Hmm.
And if you want a personal copy that I sign or something, you can contact me.
You've got a website, haven't you?
I do.
Yeah.
Somewhere on there is my email address.
Okay. I will put the website. I'll put the Amazon link and I'll put the website in the show notes so people can go back to it. And as we've alluded to, it's this getting together of ours has taken a wee while. So I just wanted to know what's next for you, or what have we missed in the period that it's taken us to get to this point?
I am the current secretary at the Haiku Foundation, and
Yeah.
so I'm spending a lot of time with my new to haiku column,
Hmm.
exploring various aspects. I still feel like a newcomer to haiku, even though I've been in it a long time at this point.
Hmm.
And I really like meeting other haiku poets. It was something I started doing during the pandemic. I like to have other poets give advice to new poets. What do you think new poets should know?
Hmm.
Is pretty much what I like to cover and get people involved in the community. Yeah, so I've been focusing a lot on that.
It is actually a very interesting column. You can learn so much from other people, even if you've been doing it for a while, like you and I have been doing. There's still new things to learn. So thank you for this reading. Thank you for the work you're doing at the Haiku Foundation. So Julie, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming along today. I thank you for writing the book. It's a beautifully written book, and people, as we've said, it's a hard topic, but that doesn't mean that the poetry isn't beautiful. It is. It's beautiful poetry, and I thank you so much for writing it, for coming along today, and for being so open with us. It was great. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. I'm reminded of the phrase, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I forgot to ask Julie if she thought the experience she's having is actually making her a stronger character. But what I am sure of is that she is a determined person. She realized she had a problem and she's taking steps to deal with it. That's all we can ask of ourselves, isn't it? So that's it for this episode. Your mission, should you choose to do it, is to tell people all about it. I think there'll be folks out there who'd benefit from knowing that there is help if you choose to seek it out. Tell the world. Together, we could change someone's life for the better. Now, a little reminder to those of you on the mailing list, there's still time to take action. At least there is if you're listening to this podcast in real time. If not, or even if you are perhaps, make sure you're on the Poetry P mailing list. Stay in the loop. Righty-ho, time to go for a walk in the woods where those big old pines might just keep me vaguely cool. Till next time, keep writing. And don't forget to check out the links in the podcast for all the bits and bobs from today's show. Ciao.